In high school my standard outfit included a backward flat-rim baseball cap. One teacher, in the middle of class, called me out. "Op, you need to take off your hat. It's distracting." "What about the 13 other guys in this class with a similar hat?" "Well, it's distracting when a girl wears a baseball cap." I was fuming. Baseball caps on girls are distracting? Fine, I won't wear one. The next class period, I wore a 3-foot-tall, red and yellow Joker hat that featured bells, so that if I moved my head all 16 bells shook. At the end of an hour and a half of bells, the teacher pulled me aside to ask that I go back to my baseball cap. Apparently it was no longer distracting. Obligatory this wasn't today happened a few years ago when I was 14 and I'm on mobile blah blah blah. Okay, so I recently remembered this wonderful event and had to post it. Background: my little brother has autism. He is high-functioning, self-aware, and makes jokes about his disability. He is also surprisingly good at the occasional roast. At the time of this mistake, I was 14 and he was 11. We had watched some prank compilations on YouTube and one of them had a pantsing video. Gee, my bro lost his shoot. He thought it was the greatest thing ever and we spent weeks afterwards in a pantsing war. The pantsing of course only occurred while we were inside as we had a serious conversation about why it would be inappropriate to do that outside where others can see, after he attempted to pants me in the driveway, and another separate conversation about why you can't pull people's underwear down too. But those were the only rules. Well, a while passes and I decided to bring a boyfriend over to meet my family, really just my mom and brother. And things went great. My BF was really nice to my brother and my brother got along with him. We decided to play a game of tag in the house. We lived in a dangerous neighborhood, and at one point my BF was it and had me and G in a corner, about to tag one of us. Looking back, G's strategy was brilliant. G turned to me and in the fastest movement I had ever seen him execute, pantsed me. Yep. I was mortified. My BF's eyes went wide as saucers and he instantly fell to the ground laughing. G knew he flipped up, he just looked at me like a deer in headlights. I was beet red, standing there, pants around my ankles, purple granny panties just out there. I quickly pulled up my pants and pulled G into another room and explained to him why we also don't pants people around guests. We laugh about it now. G says his original plan was to pants me and run, but when it all happened it was too overwhelming to remember to run. Still dying from embarrassment today. DL, doctor, I did not make it clear to my little brother that pantsing people is not appropriate around guests as well as outside. I'm currently on morphine cause of a busted knee, and this morphine makes you a bit dizzy. I stood up too quick and went down like a sack of potatoes. Luckily he's a doctor and made sure to help me while I was out, and he made other people go away so I wouldn't wake up having tons of people looking at me. He was really sweet and caring. Well, once he realized I was okay he looked at me with a cheeky smirk and said, "Don't worry, this is the effect I have on women." Without a doubt the best one-liner I've heard. He won a second date. Hopefully no more fainting will happen. So people, if you have a first date fainting, go with this line. It could win you a second date. Of a smack across the face, but it's worth it. DL, doctor. Fainted on a first date, the guy said, "Don't worry, this is the effect I have on women." He got himself a second date by saying that. So this story belongs to my grandfather, R.I.P. So when my grandfather was growing up, he was raised Catholic. He ended up going to a Catholic high school where the priest/principal would punish students harshly. His favorite punishment was to make the student grab their ankles and he'd hit the student on the back of the knees with a yardstick. If the student fell over, they had to do it again. So my grandfather was a junior in high school and he was a bit of a smarts, and I loved him for it. He one day was walking down the hallway and the priest saw him. He asked for a hall pass, but my grandfather didn't have one. The priest told my grandfather to assume the position to get hit on the back of the knees. My grandfather looked him in the eyes and told him that if the priest hit him, he'd hit the priest right back. My grandfather then assumed the position and sure enough the priest hit him. My grandfather then stood up and punched the priest in the face. He then told the priest he was done and left the school and church forever. It may not have been a major victory, but I'm sure it felt good. In college I was a bank teller. It was great, because with bank hours the bank closes at 6, is only open until 2 on Saturday, and there was almost no selling. Anyway, it was a bank full of other college kids, a few older moms, but great fun atmosphere, and the boss was young too. So old boss eventually leaves, and in comes a new boss. She's not that old either, maybe mid to early 40s, and for the most part she's cool. So to be candid, I was a really good teller, but I wasn't always at work on time. When I say on time, I mean I wasn't ready by open. For example, the bank opened at 9 a.m., you were supposed to be ready to serve customers at 9 a.m. My shift would start at 9 a.m., so that meant I was supposed to be in by like 8:45 a.m., so I could work. Now this was a while ago, so unless you were opening, your shift started at 9 a.m., even though you had to come in. So one day I come in at like 9:02 a.m., and the new boss pulls me aside and says, "Hey Phoenix, 12:30, you're late." I tell her it was only a minute late, and she says it doesn't matter, I need to be on time. I say fair enough, because I was wrong, and we had no issues. A few weeks later, bank closes at 6, I'm off at 4, and it's the first of the month, so the bank is packed not just with people cashing checks from work, but also government checks. Line is huge, and at 3:55, I begin counting out to close my box. New boss asks why I'm closing up, and I tell her I'm out at 4. She says I can stay open till 4 then close up, and I tell her then I'll be late. She says, a few minutes, and I tell her that it doesn't matter, I need to be on time. She looks at me, then just says fine. We actually had a good relationship, but from there on I was always on time, whether coming or going. Last year, there was a guy at my high school who was in the color guard. He had dyed the whole top of his hair blue, just leaving the sides undyed. The coach of color guard told him he couldn't have his hair dyed, so instead of dyeing it back to its natural color, he shaved the dyed portion of his head and left himself with a male pattern baldness haircut. I didn't really talk to him so I don't know how they reacted, but I guess they couldn't tell him to shave the rest of it off, because his hair was like that and slowly growing back until the end of the year. Great sub here girls and boys, just shorted out recently, and getting plenty of laughs scrolling through. Which reminded me of a frustrating situation I had some years ago with a client of ours whilst offering support on their point-of-sale terminal. I took a call from a client who said they were having trouble getting their computer to work. So after the standard 2/3 minutes of what she was referring to when saying the computer wasn't working, I realized that it was in fact the software that wasn't responding. So I asked her to press the escape key to clear the error. Anyway, she couldn't find the escape key, so I told her it's the button on the top left-hand corner of the keyboard. She still couldn't find it. Me, thinking okay, pause terminal, it may be elsewhere. So I got her to read some of the buttons/locations on the keyboard back to me: F4, F3, F2, F1. Me, yep, good, okay. You guessed it, still no escape key ... and you can't stop them talking when they're on a roll. Anyway, after an awkward/frustrating several minutes of her announcing just about every letter in the alphabet and describing nearly every other button on the keyboard, she advises me that she indeed has a button in the top left-hand corner with escape written on it. Could that be it? Me, oh, I am not too sure. I was exhausted by this time, can you try pressing that one for me instead then? Her, click yes, I fixed it. Me, great, thanks for your help. Bye now. This just happened. The setting, I'm chatting with a buddy of mine. We've been like brothers since middle school, and as such can act like middle school boys when we joke despite being fully grown men with families. I suppose this trait isn't exclusive to lifelong friends, but it's a trait of our relationship nonetheless. Due to the COVID-19 lockdown, we haven't seen each other in a while and are catching up via video call. He's outside on his porch and is apparently alone at the time, and he said a few minutes ago, "Hey, just so you know my battery is low, so my phone might die." So we jump right into catching up. The story: his preteen stepdaughter walks out to ask him a question. My buddy faces the camera to her and says, "Say hi to you/CJ62. We greet each other, and then she gets to ask her question, "Hey, where's the olive oil?" He replies to her, "We're out. All we have is coconut oil." For those of you who don't know, coconut oil makes an excellent lube for sex. My buddy knows this, and we've snickered before about how it's funny to have our kids blissfully unaware of how that cooking oil is getting used by the parents for more than just cooking. I see her walk back in the house in the background, and he turns the camera back on himself. Aware that it's now just the boys again, I try to crack a bit of a low-effort joke and say always gotta have coconut oil smile, and make the old pointer finger in the okay hand gesture. Now, I know where some of you probably think this is going. No, I wasn't overheard by a third party. In fact, quite the opposite. I was not heard by anyone. You see, as he turned his phone around and she walked back in, He was feeling sentimental about his growing young gal, and spoke at the same time as me, "Man, she's getting so big," and then turns his eyes to the screen to see me drilling my dumb finger into a metaphorical vajayjay as he's talking about his teen girl growing up. His facial expression turns from a loving gaze to shocked. He exclaims, "What?" and his phone dies. TLDR, on a video call with a buddy, I make a sexual hand gesture in reference to a particular type of lube, and it's interpreted to be about his young teen girl, and his phone dies before I can clarify. So this happened when I had just turned 12. We were at an amusement park for my mom's birthday and we had to tell this worker our ages to get in. When he asked me how old I was, I said 11. No wait, 12? I've always had terrible memory, and this dude looked at me like I had just said I was a product of a genetic experiment gone horribly wrong and said it's kind of sad that you had to think about that. And I wish I had said something smart back, but I just sort of glared at him and complained about it later, skeptical anyways. We had fun besides that, but the food was terrible. Overall, 7/10, would probably go back. We're using our old night window right now for all guest interactions, but when housekeeping is here we leave the front door unlocked so they can come and go easier. Because of this, we have a sign with big unfriendly letters that says employees only, as well as a sheet of printer paper with a big solid black arrow that takes up as much space as it could, directing people over to the night window. We also have another sign over the night window that says in big letters service window, along with another arrow pointing to the window. So naturally everyone still tries coming in the front door. Usually I just internal eye roll because no one reads signs. But this guy really took the cake from the start to the end of the encounter. I see a guy walking down the walkway towards the window. I give him a friendly wave and motion to the night window so he knows where to go. He waves back, apparently having understood. He starts to walk to where I've directed him, gets just past the front door, looks at the front door and decides, oh wait, this is definitely where I meant to go despite having just been directed somewhere else. I see him do this, wave my hands to get his attention, fail, see him stop to look at the sign on the front door for a few seconds, then open the door and come in anyway. I was so taken aback I blurted out, seriously? There's a sign and an arrow, come to the window. So he apologizes and comes over to the window. Tells me he has a reservation. I ask for his ID and card. He tries handing me a Cash App card. I tell him no, it has to be a bank card or credit card. Oh, but he has a reservation. Yes, I understand that. We need a card for the reservation. He tells me he'll have his companion pay. Cool, no problem. As he walks over to his companion walking across the parking lot, I see him notice our marquee and point it out to his companion, who also laughs. The sign says Seabaskin definitely did it, because it turns out you can just put anything on your hotel sign and get away with it until someone complains about it to your brand. They come up to the window and compliment the sign, the usual reaction to it. The first guy offers up his EBT card for the room. Now, unless he is Carol Baskin's tiger and we are her husband, we are not food and cannot take an EBT card. I can't ascertain his status as a tiger or not, though it could explain his behavior. I can state with absolute certainty we are not Carol Baskin's husband. As such, I declined the card. Friend as promised produced his ID and card, which the reservation had been made with in the first place, so I don't really get why guy who didn't have the card was the one being sent over to check in. Maybe he's a tiger too. Maybe they just have no idea how hotels work. I work for a UK financial services company in customer service. As well as saving cash, we have a platform for trading stocks and shares, including international stock exchanges such as the USA. New York is 5 hours behind the UK in time, so when the New York Stock Exchange opens at 9:30 a.m., it's 2:30 p.m. in the UK. This conversation occurred a while back. Me, good afternoon, company name, how can I help? Caller, I want to trade on the NYSE. But your website doesn't let me. Yes sir, it won't let you until it opens. It's 2:15 now, so at 2:30 when the market opens you'll be able to trade. C, what do you mean? The New York Stock Exchange opens at 9:30 a.m., but because of the time difference that's 2:30 here. So in 15 minutes, it'll open and you'll be able to trade. C, that's a bit late, isn't it? Well, not really, sir. It's just the time zones, I'm afraid. C, but it used to open earlier. I don't think so, sir. C, well, what are you going to do about it? I'm really sorry, sir, I can't do anything about the opening times. C, but it should open in the morning. It does, sir. The morning in New York. C. O. Flip off. Hangs up. I still don't understand exactly what I was meant to do, but if I did control the opening times of the NYSE, I'd like to think I'd be making significantly more than I am now. This was also the first time I'd been told to flip off in that particular role, 2 weeks in, so a special moment. So I work for a very popular gas station, 4 years current, and tonight I was working second shift. Young woman, legit looks less than 16, approaches with items and I began ringing her items up. She doesn't look up entire time and asks me for L% bold 100s. Doesn't see that we have only shorts because she is still looking down while talking to me. I ask for her ID and this is her response, so I didn't know I needed an ID for cigarettes. I just say yeah. She actually didn't throw a fit or anything. Just got the rest of the stuff, paid, and left. But deep down I know that she was more than likely 90% underage and hoping I wouldn't ID her. It's crazy how bold and confident she was to try that. This is an ongoing thing here lately with the blatantly underage attempting to buy age-restricted products. Another sale denied. Many years ago, I had a couple of friends who worked for an auction house in a city that is synonymous with wealth and celebrity. My friends invited me to hang out on an auction night as it could be pretty entertaining and better than the local movie theater. During the inspection hours, potential bidders could walk through the gallery to get a look at the items, mostly fancy antique furniture and art objects, to decide what to bid on and how much. Clowning around with my friends, I put on something like a Texas accent to describe a piece of furniture in a comical way. It was a big French antique desk with a number of deceptive design elements, including faked painted books to conceal hidden compartments, features, and such. That kind of deceptive design is called trompe-l'oeil, which means fool the eye in French. I was clowning around with my friends as if I were some kind of expert teaching staff members, and calling it trompe-l'oeil, as if it were named for a person. I made up some nonsense that trompe-l'oeil was a member of the French royal family who was an embarrassment and didn't make it to the history books, but that he made funny furniture designs as pranks on the rest of the family. While we were having a laugh, I noticed out of the corner of my eye that a woman was standing nearby listening to my BS. I smiled at her as we were moving away from that desk, and she smiled back. I didn't think much about it at the moment. Just before the auction was about to begin, I heard her in a pretty animated conversation with one of the art experts on staff who was explaining to her that there was no person called trompe-l'oeil, and what the correct pronunciation actually meant. I dove for cover behind some other furniture as that art expert had to suffer with having his credentials and expertise being called into question by this woman because she listened to some goofball who didn't work their make-up dumb histories about French antiques. Hope he never figured it out. When I was 16-17 I worked for a local, family-owned grocery store. I left a few months later because the number of hours they wanted interfered with my studies. Least amount they'd give me was 25. They closed at 8 p.m. I'd get out of school at 2, work at 2:30 until 8, go home and do homework until about midnight, sleep till 5:30 and repeat. Cast, M, me. NM, new manager. OM, old manager. S, Steve, name changed for privacy. Years went by no problem. Fast forward to this past October, and I'm now 26. Full beard, full sleeve. Clearly doesn't look like a 16-year-old. Standing there buying food when the manager, some girl I never met, walks over. Conversation as follows. NM, I need you to work customer service so Steve can go on break. He's late. M, I don't work here. Haven't in years. NM, you're on the schedule, and you're here so, go cover Steve. M, no I really don't work here. At this point OM comes over and asks NM what the holdup is. NM, he's, points to me, trying to get out of doing his job by claiming he doesn't work here. OM, he doesn't. Hasn't since 2010. How you been? NM, he's on the schedule. OM, do you even know his name? Or do you just assume anyone standing around for more than 5 minutes works here? Go cover Steve. After all this happened I walked over to her and said, hey, I don't work here, and I don't know why you thought I'd be on the schedule. I've never even met you. She was so red and annoyed, but why would I lie about not working there? Still have no idea who she thought I was. I wasn't even dressed like an employee. I was at the supermarket the other day lining up in line with only 1 or 2 items at the under 10 items register. It was my turn to get served next when a lady with a basket with much more than 10 items cut in front and placed her stuff down on the counter. It was pretty clear that I was in line, yet she just walked straight in front. My social anxiety meant I didn't say anything, but I noticed she left a tomato in her basket that she placed into the holder next to the register. I didn't say anything, and I really hope she needed that tomato for something important cause she left without it. It seemed petty at the time and I don't regret it. Added to clarify, I work at the supermarket, it's the only one in town, full-time, and at the time this happened I had already finished work, went home, got changed and came back again to get some things. It just so happened I started the next morning, it opened and the tomato was still in the basket but squished, so I had to clean it up. I don't even really care that it kinda backfired on me, I was still happy she didn't get the tomato. This story takes place a year ago, when I worked retail for a Midwestern chain that was an everything store. I worked as a lead sales associate, basically I was the manager if the manager or assistant store manager wasn't there. I had recently been promoted and was still learning how to do everything. One day, I get a bizarre phone call asking if we'd had dumpsters delivered. I left my cashier, Z, to run around back to check it out. As I was doing so, Z said he needed me for a return. Only the leads and managers had the key to allow returns, so I told the lady I'd be with her in just a moment and ran out back. When I got back a few minutes later, no extra dumpsters and the caller was just as confused, a line had formed. I hopped on the second register to start the return when Z said he needed me for a price override. I looked at his line, which would be stuck until I fixed the prices and my lady, and said I just had to fix this real quick. I popped in my key and was trying to figure out the price override system when she got extremely angry, said she'd be late for work and to just forget it. I managed to fix the system, but she'd already left. She probably waited 10 minutes. I figured that would be the end of it, until she called back a little later. She wanted corporate's number because she thought I had ignored her. I apologized profusely and tried to find the number while she berated me saying how awful I was. I was nearly in tears, couldn't find the number, and she eventually just hung up on me. My assistant manager, Mark, came in later that evening for a snack and asked what was up. I broke and cried out the whole story. I felt awful and it was my worst day of work ever. He calmed me down, and I thought that was the end of it. A few weeks later, the woman approached Mark to file a complaint against me. He ended up telling her my side, how I felt terrible and was new to the job, so I wasn't trying to ignore her. She said she still wouldn't come back to the store. Finally, months after the fact, she came back to the store. She happened to come on one of my last days before I moved to a new state. I didn't recognize her at first, and we chatted for a bit before she said that she came to see me. I was confused until she brought up the incident. Then she told me that she felt awful for how she treated me and it had bothered her for months, especially after she spoke with Mark. She said that she'd worked retail, too, and had been having a rough time. I told her it was alright and explained how the registers worked so only a key holder could fix things and that combined with Z's line had made it so I couldn't help her right away. She apologized again and bought me a little princess statue as a gift to make up for everything. I honestly think fate brought her back to the store my last week just so I would know not all customers are as terrible as they first appear. Cue me doing my NA shift on a Saturday night. A guy checked in and went upstairs no problem. Couple hours later, he says to me as he's passing through the lobby, "Man, I wish I could have gotten a different room." I didn't know what to say because of how needlessly vague this statement was. I hate when guests do this. Leave us to lead the conversation because they want to see what they can get. So I say, "Why is that?" And he tells me about how loud his neighbors are. I tell him I'll give them a call and if they don't quiet down immediately, I'll tell them they have to leave the property. To which he responds, "No, no, no. I just wanted to make you aware of it." I just sigh because obviously that means he's going to try to use it as leverage later on. He goes upstairs and I don't see him again. He comes to check out at around 6:30 a.m., of course right as I'm about to get off. This is our brief conversation. "Gee, so what are we going to do about last night? I have to leave early this morning and couldn't get any sleep." Me, "I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you mean. I offered to speak to them but you declined." "Gee, that shouldn't have been necessary. You never should have given me that room in the first place. That's what I was making you aware of." Me, "It's not really possible for us to predict loud guests. That's why we do our best to resolve the problem after it arises." "Gee, well that's all well and good but I shouldn't have to pay for the room when I couldn't get any sleep." Me, "Sir. I offered to remedy the situation and you declined. I'm not able to comp the room." "Gee, you have got to be joking. Why would I pay for a room when I wasn't able to get any sleep?" Get your manager out here right now. I hate when guests ask for the manager like he's some kind of mythical deity who can solve world hunger and cure cancer. Me, it's 6 a.m. on a Sunday, he won't be in until tomorrow. I can pass your information on, but I can tell you, he likely won't be able to compensate anything. Gee, well, that is just unacceptable. You'll be hearing from me. He just stormed out. He did talk to the manager and, like I predicted, was told to flip himself, in not so many words. It's so easy to catch people out on shit like this. I'm never not amused by the lengths people will go to try to get things for free. This happened about a month ago. In the high of the pandemic here in Canada. A lady walks into the lobby and she isn't even one step in the hotel and she goes, "Is there a manager here?" I explained to her that at this time unfortunately not, but that I'd do my best to try and help her. She explains to me that her house tap water is on a well and that right now, showering irritates her skin. So she proceeded to tell me that since the pandemic is going on, business is probably really slow with lots of empty room, and that she was looking for a bit of kindness and if she could come twice a week, for free, and we would just let her in a room so she could shower and go on her way. That anyway it wouldn't really affect us anyway since business is slow. After a good 30 seconds of mentally shaking my head, I just make sure I correctly understood her delusionally entitled request. I politely explained to her there is no way that this is a possibility and that she can rent and pay for a room to shower. She left mumbling to herself and mad. Client called and was upset that we wouldn't waive any more fees. After a final exception was made, they were told that no more would be waived. Well, I get them and they want another fee removed. I told her we can't. She got all mad and said fine, close my account. I said I'm sorry to hear that, could you confirm your mailing address and we will send a check out. She must have thought she was calling Comcast and I could offer her something. Why would you tell me that? How dare you? Ma'am. I'm just honoring your request. Hi, first post here, so I'm sorry if anything's wrong with it. I, 25F, own my house and rent 2 rooms to 2 other people, also 25F. I was friends with one of them for a few years prior to living together and then she brought her friend along. It started out fine, although from the very beginning they ignored what I thought to be some simple requests, leaving me a spot to park in the driveway and not smoking weed in the living room. Over the last year things have taken a huge downturn. They slam doors, talk at yelling volume at all hours, ignore me when I talk, don't do household chores or clean up after themselves, and don't pay rent on time, to name a few. The bottom line is they have proven that they have no respect for me or my home. I have tried to have multiple conversations with them about resolving these issues and easing the tension. Nothing has made a difference. Quarantine has made everything worse, and now there is a situation with a pet that has pushed me over the edge. I have 60-day notices to vacate printed and ready to serve. I know I'm in the right, and even if I'm not, it's my house. They're on month-to-month lease agreements and I don't need a reason to end them. But I still have a pit in my stomach, and my throat tightens and heart pounds when I think about handing the papers over. I am not good with confrontation. I haven't been home in days since the last argument, staying with my boyfriend, and the thought of going back makes me so uncomfortable. It's my house, I shouldn't have to live that way. Tell me to grow some balls and kick them out. I need encouragement. A nursing supervisor friend of mine was working at our hospital. She told me this story. A patient died and was taken to the morgue in the basement. He was a recent code blue from the ER. The family arrives later that night and asks to see the patient in the morgue. Some people need closure. The nursing supervisor escorts the family to this locked and restricted area in the basement. It's close to midnight and the family wailing, overcome by grief. They are so upset he died and want to blame someone. They collectively grab the body partially wrapped in plastic. They said they want to throw him on the front lawn and call the press to expose the hospital for perceived wrongdoing. They start running down the hall, the body in tow. This basement is a literal maze of hallways containing laundry, kitchen facilities, medical supplies and even a loading dock for supplies to be delivered. There are many locked areas which make it a confusing place to negotiate. It was like the Keystone Cops or a Scooby-Doo scene, going in and outdoors, running up and down various hallways with the nursing supervisor in pursuit. The family were unable to find a way out. They finally gave up, and the patient was returned to the morgue. I work at a small-town coffee shop that has managed to adapt and stay busy during COVID-19 by utilizing a window for walk-up service. A regular problematic customer, let's call him TJ, is a typical middle-aged man riddled with toxic masculinity. He often makes female employees and customers uncomfortable with his comments. Lately he's been around a lot, being typical DJ. Today he came to our window and ordered a coffee. Cool, nothing out of the ordinary. A co-worker asked him if he would like to tip via our Square register. We normally don't verbally ask customers, but with the current pandemic we are not allowing customers to touch our iPad system. He proceeded to tell her to put 100, and reassured them he wanted to tip that much because he appreciates our hard work and effort and wants to chip in since our business has been a bit slower. Okay, I gave him that and almost have a change of heart about DJ. We both outwardly thank him and he goes on his way. I text my boss about this uncharacteristic interaction with TJ, and through their end of the register system she was able to look at the transaction. They noticed that not only was the credit card he used not in his name, but in his boss's name, on their company card. Typical TJ. What a D-bag. I have a story to share. I work in a chat-based call center and this pandemic has caused customers to be crazier than usual. This one guy chatted in with about an issue with his product that ended up being hardware related. I gave him his service options, which were to either bring it to the store or mail it into our service center. He instead demanded that we ship him a new one instead of him bringing it to the store or mailing it in because he had been with X company for a long time. When I told him this wasn't something we offer, he demanded to speak to a supervisor. At the time we were of course having system issues as well, so I couldn't transfer the chat to one of our chat senior advisors, so I let him know that hey, we are experiencing some issues at this time with contacting our senior team. You are more than welcome to call X number to speak with them, or you can chat back in a couple hours and we will get you right over to them. He of course didn't like that and said no, he was going to wait on this chat until I get him a supervisor. He didn't care how long it took, he wanted to speak to one and I was going to get him to them. First time posting, currently a EMS dispatcher for a private ambulance company for 3 years now. We take some calls, however, they're usually seizures, psych, and falls. This one? Probably should have been psych, but unfortunately she wasn't the patient. This call happened in my first year, while I was pretty fresh and didn't understand the power of controlling a call. And #X200B. Me, okay, tell me exactly what happened. CLR, yeah, my mom fell in the other room, you know we have her locked in there right now, but yeah she fell and I think she may have hit her head. Me, okay, are you with her now? CLR, well, you see, she has dementia, and we live in a new home, so she is locked in there. You see, we can't have her wandering because of the bears that are around here. Me, have you gone to check on her yet? CLR, no, I can't unlock her door because she will get out and the bears will get her. Me, can you please go check on the patient? CLR, yeah, I think she might have hit her head, it sounded like she hit the end table, that's what woke me up, but even our big dog, insert large dog brand, is afraid to go outside because there are bears here at this new house. Please send the ambulance, but make sure they get in and out quick because the bears will get them. Rinse and repeat for literally every one of the 10 questions involved with a fall. I was essentially working with a third-party caller as she flat out refused to unlock her mother from the room until the EMTs got there, let alone even go look at her. And #X200B. I kid you not, I heard way more about these bears than I ever got out of her regarding her fallen mother. While I may have wanted to bash my head into the desk repeatedly asking her the questions, now I can have a good belly laugh over it. From what I do remember though, Mom was transported alright, and no EMTs were mauled by the darn bears. Here's what I mean by this. You're on a call, right? You're doing your necessary research, giving the right information, being as professional as possible. Like a true golden star. Despite all of this, Becky/Karen/Kyle/Chad isn't being their best selves that day and act out their natural instinct of making you bend over backwards to break policy. You're doing your best to stand firm and not take their trash, but Becky/Karen/Kyle/Chad isn't letting up at all. Then you hear a faint voice in the background of the other line. Why are you being like this? You're going to have an appointment either way you look at it? Why are you asking for something to arrive on Sunday when Sunday is not a business day? You notice Becky/Karen/Kyle/Chad stop going Super Saiyan and accept your assistance, all while avoiding an unnecessary escalation. That is what I like to call a background savior, that little voice of reason that helps provide real-time common sense to the offender. Perhaps they work in a call center as well, so they understand the struggle. Maybe they use the same company and had a similar situation happen to them. Or they're just overall good, emotionally mature people who know how to channel their frustration without insulting those that are just trying to help. To all the background saviors in the world, You have no idea of how your intervention makes the difference in our typical day. Thank you for being a sparkle of hope for humanity by showing there are some decent people still out there. We appreciate you. Cheers! The title is pretty self-explanatory. Tifu by accidentally shaving off my mole. No, I don't mean the creature living underground. While I was shaving, I accidentally ran the razor over it, this cutting the thing. I turned the shower to the coldest water possible thinking the cold might stop the bleeding, but that didn't quite work out as planned. So I just took a plaster and smacked it on top. It's been 10 hours now and I just removed the plaster to check on it as the cotton of the plaster was quite bloody. Veil pit's still bleeding. I applied some hand sanitizer, mind you that is the only thing in the house which has high amounts of alcohol, on a cotton ball and stalked it to the place where the mole is. Still doesn't stop the bleeding, it's bleeding less, but it hasn't stopped. Can someone please help me out? Embarrassed smiley face. DL, doctor, I accidentally shaved my mole and it won't stop bleeding. Edit. Thanks for the suggestions guys, it finally stopped I think. In November 24, 1992, this unidentified person was found at 801 South Adams Street in Petersburg, Virginia. The state medical examiner stated she had died of a heart attack. She was wrapped in a blanket and abandoned with a note saying that no one could afford to bury the lady. The note said she was 78 years old and named Wilma but unfortunately did not provide a last name. It also said she lived in Mebane, North Carolina, and was visiting a ill friend in Petersburg. The note said that she had no family except her stepson named Otis, again no last name, which lived in New Jersey. There was no luck finding anyone known Wilma or Otis in those areas. The note may have false info to mislead authorities. Found, hours prior. Estimated age, 68 to 78. Recovery, all parts recovered and recognizable face. Race, black. Gender, female. Height, 5 foot 1 inches. Weight, 71 pounds. Hair color, graying black. Eye color, brown. Marks and features, she had a prior surgery that revealed a 10.5 inches healed midline abdominal incision scar. Small, healed, scars on lower extremities ranging from 1/8 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch by 1/4 of an inch. Scattered hyperpigmented patches and scars over the back from the nape of neck down to the buttocks. Dentals, no teeth. Fingerprints, NA. DNA, insufficient. Clothing was a pink slip and peach socks. Additional items were a white sheet with blue flowers and butterflies, a blue sheet with flowers and light brown blanket. Links. Specific place where she was found. So I was working the front desk at my hotel working the 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. shift. It had been a slow night. 3 check-ins and a few random guests buying things from our store and needing towels and whatnot. At around 11 p.m., I had just finished counting the drawer and starting to get things together to close my cashiering and whatnot, when a delivery driver comes into my lobby. The man had a bag from Taco Bell. Looks at me and asks if I ordered food. I'm like, not me. Did you get a name or room number? The man only had a first name and last initial and a room number. I'm like, okay. Well, let me call the room. I pick up the phone and dial the number. I look up and he has put the door. Okay. Well, guess what? No answer. So I type in the system. No one's staying in our hotel by that name nor is that room number even occupied. Well, shoot. So I call Taco Bell. They have no extra information for me. So, time to do some sleuthing. I first call a couple of the hotels in my town. No one had ordered Taco Bell. I was about to just give up when I sent a text to my night auditor, making a joke that she had some free dinner that night. Told her what happened and she suggested that maybe it was a different state. OMG, I instantly Googled my hotel name and city name and typed a different state. Side note, since we opened last year, we have discovered there are 3 of our brand name hotels in 3 same-named cities in the world. I called the hotel and the front desk agent answers. Hotel name, of, city name, this is, name, how may I help you? Hello, this is, my name, from, hotel name, of, my city, my state. How are you tonight? So, weird question. Would you happen to have a guest who ordered food tonight? Say Taco Bell to be exact. Under the name given, and the room number 214? Why yes. She was so confused. She had received a notification that it was delivered but I never received anything. Well, it was delivered, just wrong state. I laughed. The desk agent chuckled as well. Then said, guess you got some free tacos. I'm like, I guess I do. I then call Taco Bell back and give them a heads up that they may get a dispute as the order they filled was meant for another state. He thanked me for calling him. Then the night auditor and I split the order and enjoyed the free meal. Crazy stuff, but hey, free tacos. I'm a manager for a big chain and honestly, I don't know if I'll go back. I've been fed up with the late nights, weekends and holidays since I was promoted. I really don't want to go back to that life. I also am worried about corporate making us do some ridiculous policies we just aren't qualified for. Rumors about temperature checks, not letting people in who have a cough, etc. I hate the guests. I'm fed up with their stupid questions and bogus complaints. The only problem is the theater is my only work experience and I don't have a college degree, so I have literally nothing to fall back on, which sucks. Do you think you'll go back? Managers, supervisors, crew? Why or why not? Hope you're all staying safe out there. Me and Beth were friends for 2 years. She was very paranoid about my true intentions in the friendship and could be very hostile. She also suffered from BPD. Over the course of our newfound friendship she behaved nicely and normally. Earlier this year I got in a huge fight with my family and moved out to cool off. I stayed with Beth, which I was grateful for, and yes, I paid rent. One night during my stay, Beth was smoking on the balcony and had the door open. Her charger was plugged into an outlet inside the house, and I asked her to close the door due to my asthma. She looked at me like I was a total annoyance and said I need to charge my phone. I replied, yeah I know, but can you please finish your cigarette first and then charge it? And Beth replied, not really, can you go somewhere else? I said the smoke will travel through the house and she just said, can you please just let me chill? So I left and went to her room. The smoke did travel. In fact, her friend who was with her said, Jesus Beth, you smoked out the whole house, haha. My chest hurt for hours and I had to use my puffer twice. I didn't even want to talk to her after this. I left her house and went back to my family the next day. I ghosted her on everything and basically just wallowed because I felt so unimportant. She texted my girlfriend a month later basically laying out that I was a toxic friend and a horrible person, that I should feel bad for what I did to her, and honestly the whole situation has me really depressed. My GF didn't reply and I haven't said a word to her in months. Okay, so this happened to me about 3 years ago if I'm correct. I thought about this being ball lightning, but it couldn't be because of the way the orbs moved and the fact that there hadn't been even rain that night. To this day I have no explanation. Back then I was even more of a UFO believer than now after seeing those things. Could have contributed to a hallucination based around my interests at the time, since when it happened I was pretty tired. Before I tell this story, I have no proof or anything. In my old house, which is where this takes place, there was a window next to my bed that had one of those large metal panels. If you jumped out the window you'd land on metal just below the window rather than on concrete. My problem was that because I was paranoid, I wanted to see what was outside, so I knew nothing was there. But I didn't want something out there to see me. I guess I thought a creature or something could get onto that metal bit. They easily could, and shatter the glass? I don't really know the thoughts that went through my head. I wasn't able to sleep that night, checked the watch and it was around 10:30 p.m., pitch black outside with the windows open. I was gazing at the window hoping to fall asleep when I saw 3 bright spinning lights the shape of orbs right at the window. The formation they were in was kind of like the reverse gear of a manual transmission. The 3 gears with the 2 spinning in a way that makes the other spin the opposite way, but of course it didn't spin the opposite way. I then felt more tired than before and they stayed at the window until the time I was asleep, which was about 5 seconds after they appeared. When I woke up the only thing I remembered was seeing that. Then over months I found bruises in all different places on my body and a decent sized scratch on my back with an ache in my spine and right thumb. I remembered this because just yesterday I was playing around with some drums and the exact same spot was aching the exact same way. I never saw the orbs again. I have many other stories of strange occurrences, but I'd prefer to save them for another time. Also, my dad was a ghost hunter and has a sort of ghost ability. Not very important to this story, but I'll mention it. Feel free to ask about it if you think it is important. Bartender at a local pizza joint. My buddy came in after a long day dealing with his 2 sick little girls. He tells me a story from today about the littlest. She's screaming for him from the bathroom. She states she's been waiting for 60 years for him. All she wanted was a cheese pizza from our place. Since they were sick, he went with something more appropriate for upset stomachs. But you can guarantee I got him a gift certificate for a cheese pizza for her when she's better. Nice to have good customers to even out the bad ones, lol. I worked in housekeeping in a hotel for months up until this past week. I'm now 35 weeks pregnant. I was scheduled to work 5+ days a week, with 20+ rooms to myself. I came into work recently, because I was on the schedule, and I could barely walk. I couldn't bend my back and my ankles were hugely swollen. I had been in L&D the night before to stop contractions. We didn't have many rooms, but 5 housekeepers in-house. Everyone was almost begging my manager to send me home, as we had too many housekeepers for the amount of rooms. Now, I'm huge at this point in pregnancy. I can't bend too far forward in general. My manager and I, discussed a couple weeks ago that she didn't want me cleaning bathtubs, so I was to have another housekeeper come clean my bathtubs. No biggie, I was fine with that. Well, the day before I quit I had went to find another HK to help with a bathtub. Said manager stopped us in the hall and asked what we were doing socializing on the clock. We explained that she was going to clean a bathtub for me and would go right back to her rooms. She yelled at me and said that if I can't do my job, I need to quit so that she can hire someone who's willing to work. I explained that it wasn't that I wasn't willing to work, rather that's one small task that I myself struggle with accomplishing. She didn't care. She continued yelling at me. Now, I've always hated being yelled at, so I spent the rest of my shift crying while cleaning my rooms. I got home from work, still crying. My boyfriend became extremely upset as I told him what had happened. We decided that it's in the best interest of our child that I just be done, as it's a lot of emotional trouble as well as physical. So I gave my manager her wish, and I went in and handed in my scrubs and quit. She seemed sympathetic, said she understood, was sad to see me go, and for me to come talk to her after I was released from maternity leave. Fast forward to today, another HK at said hotel was talking to this manager, while recording the conversation to send to me. She asked if I would be back after baby. The manager told her that I was lazy and a crybaby so she would never consider hiring me back. I'm glad I quit. I feel like I dodged a bullet. I'm not sure that I'll ever be able to convince myself to work in housekeeping again. I'm 14, at the mall. I'm at a table with some friends who must have been talking about something entirely uninteresting to me, because I was just sitting there wondering if I could swallow an entire milk Whopper, you know, those spherical milk chocolate candies. Turns out I can't, because that thing got lodged in my throat to a point where no air was making it in or out. So what do I do? Well, if you think gesturing to my friends that I was choking to ensure my survival, you're wrong. As soon as I couldn't feel air passing through my throat, I got up suddenly and speed walked to the bathroom. Who wants to die in the middle of a mall food court choking on a piece of candy? Not me, I thought, as I stared into the mall bathroom mirror, quite literally watching the light leave my eyes. Before death came to me in the form of spherical chocolatey goodness, I noticed a man who was midstream on the urinal. As a final bout for survival, I gently tapped the man, who understandably doesn't turn around on the first tap. That mall is in a sketchy area, and I'm sure he's had to deal with a few tweakers trying to get his attention while his is in the middle of his pee stream. Unable to say anything, and with my face turning so vividly into the color purple, I upped the force and sort of punched his arm to get his attention. "What the flip?" he said as he turned around to face me. But this man quickly noticed the problem, and went straight from peeing in a urinal to giving me a full-fledged Heinrich maneuver. Did he have time to put his unit back before doing so? I didn't have time to think about such small or large things as I watched the milk Whopper shoot right out of my throat and into the trash can, as if he had aimed it. After about 10 seconds of gasping for air, I did the only thing that came to mind and offered the guy $5 for saving my life. It was all I had. He refused and left the bathroom without washing his hands. Another man came into the restroom about a minute after my savior had left, leaving me to think about what would have happened if someone had walked in on a 30-ish-year-old man, who may or may not have been free dangling, manhandling a 14-year-old child in a mall bathroom. I think about you sometimes, mall bathroom savior. Thanks for saving me from impending doom. I have never eaten a milk Whopper since. And #X200B. DL, doctor, tried to swallow a piece of candy whole, avoided making a scene out of my death by running into the bathroom, got saved by a man and possibly his manhood. I am 14. I am a certified referee in my state. I know the rules as I've played by them my whole life along with taking the officiating classes. At our park district, no headers for ages below 11. But in U12, it is up to the referee's discretion. So if it's a small tap it's okay. That is exactly what happens. So the coach behind me screams at the top of his lungs there are no headers in U12 5 to 16 times. I ignore him. Though I could eject him. It was last game of the season and I didn't care. After a bit of yelling, he says fine, go duck yourself then, which I turn and tell at him for saying in front of U11 kids. I wish I sent him away or ended the match. Sadly I didn't do much and my partner is a longtime referee, officiated my matches as I grew up, and he is deaf. So he has no idea what happened. The person who runs Park District in my area has been informed and is taking action. So as typical, this didn't happen today. I'd say about 5-6 months ago. The post about the guy calling his wife homely and the fact my own girlfriend never lets me forget this reminded me of it. To the story. We both used to work at the same shop, which is how we met. We were just generally chatting upstairs about different things and we started complimenting each other. Now, as a dumb person who's not very good at English or words in general, I try to sound clever when I can. So I want to call my girlfriend priceless because she is. She means so much to me and I love her a lot. I would never intentionally hurt her in any way. Anyway, we're bantering and doing the usual compliments and I try to say 2 sentences jumbled together. It was a mix of "you're worth so much to me" and "you're priceless." The end result was well worthless. And I blurted out and told my girlfriend to her face she was worthless. Thankfully, after I did my groveling and apologizing, she took it in stride and laughed it off. After pretending to be mad at me, she never lets me forget this flip-up of mine. TLDR, called my GF worthless but combining 2 different sentences into one. My bad. Hi there, I'm new and don't know if it belongs there. Yes, I've read the rules but still not sure. It's not a creepy story by itself, more like looking for advice. If it doesn't belong, please tell me and I will remove. Also, I will try my best to explain so it will be long. It's been a year or maybe a bit more since one or more people, I do not know if it's always the same one, try to open my apartment door. They do not call my name, ring the doorbell or knock, just violently try to open it. Once the person was even scratching. It's not regular, there can be 1 or 2 months with nothing. I don't know if it will happen again and when. Maybe they have tried during the lockdown when I was away. Also, it happens either at day or early at night, so it's not drunk people coming to the wrong door at 4 a.m. Last time I was in the corridor of my apartment, so I ran to the door to see who TF it was through the peephole. The weirdo heard me and ran down the stairs and outside, so I couldn't see them. I don't know what this person or these people want. I'm not acquainted with my neighbors except those who are on the same floor. I highly doubt it's them, and one couple or brother and sister on the floor above, and I know it's not a mistake because I've made a note stating that I was living here, and it still happened after that. I don't have an exact number, but would say it happened between 15 to 20 times. It's not that much, but I don't think it should happen at all. It makes me a bit anxious and I'm afraid of forgetting to lock my door one day, or night, because I have no idea what they would do if they succeed to enter. Since we are on Let's Not Meet, maybe some of you have been in a similar situation and can give me advice about what to do? Again, sorry for the length, also sorry for possible mistakes and poor choices of words. English isn't my native language. Love on you. I have several friends who work at 2 restaurants on a usually busy vacation island. Both restaurants are owned by the same guy and he has been shady in the past. He got the PPP and opened up last week. Everyone was told they would be making an average of their typical tip money, but he would be taking the tips customers gave them from now on. Everyone is extremely frustrated with this because they're making far less than usual and have been out of work for the last 2 months. No one will say anything out of fear for their jobs. I'm almost positive this is illegal, but I don't know what to tell my friends. Not me, but witnessed my bar manager go through this. Customer: excuse me, I've been waiting ages and you served everyone except me. Bar manager: I'm sorry love, what do you want? C: I'm not your love. Stares. BM: I'm sorry, can I get you anything? C: I think it's awful how you ignore customers who have been waiting for so long. BM: I didn't realize you had been waiting so long, what can I get you? C: Well, I think this is awful, 5 people must have come after me and been served. BM: I apologize again, I'll get you your drinks now, what would you like? C: For free? BM: Sorry, I can't do them for free. C: Why not? I've had to wait for so long, it's the least you can do. BM: I don't think it works like that, do you want any drinks or not? C: Of course I do, why do you think I was waiting at the bar? But I don't think I should have to pay. BM: You can either buy a drink or stand away from the bar, I'm afraid, that's all we can offer. C: Fine. But I don't want you to serve me. BM: Why not? C: Because you're incompetent, you don't know what you're doing. BM: Well, everyone else here didn't serve you fast enough either, what difference does it make who pours your drinks? C, well I've just said, anyone but you. Now get somebody else. BM, well, the other staff are busy mixing drinks, so you'll have to wait if you want them. C, are you kidding? Flip you. BM, flip me? I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Commence ranting and shouting followed by the bouncer escorting her out. Before I start, this isn't a pity me story, I'm fine. I want to share this because it was ridiculous. I'd met this guy, let's call him DG for delusional guy. I was 16 at the time, he seemed alright and back then I didn't see the red flags as red flags. So naturally when he started opening up to me about his abusive ex-girlfriends and how he was such a nice guy and they took advantage of it, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Boy, was I wrong. Fast forward to a year later, DG asks me out and I say yes. Over the course of 2 years, he started creating problems where there weren't any, all the time. He was always the poor victim, I was always wrong. Eventually it got to a point where he'd get mad for anything that didn't involve paying attention to him exclusively. Including sleeping. Always twisting it to make it look like it was the worst crime ever committed. He'd compare me a lot with his ex, let's call her Girl. Girl had supposedly tried to contact him again but he didn't want anything to do with her because she was toxic and she cheated on him. Here's an example of him getting mad at me for problems he created himself. Once he sent me a random nude and I didn't want to anger him so I reacted positively. And it became all about how he was a nice guy and I was treating him like a sex object. Few weeks later he sent me another nude and since I didn't want to make him feel like a sex object I stayed neutral about it. And of course I was still a monster because I was making him feel unattractive and insecure. There was just no winning with him. I found a job in a fast food restaurant a couple years ago and I broke up with him shortly after since I was seeing normal humans again and of course I could suddenly see the entire relationship was far from normal. Not only that but I found out Girl hadn't cheated on DG. He had cheated on her. She dumped him and he tried to get her back throughout our entire relationship. So much for not wanting to do anything with her and she's trying so hard to contact me. He was also actively cheating on me with another girl. After I dumped him, he begged me to give him a chance but I said no. So he sent me a million texts whining about how he was such a nice guy again and he still cared even after how I treated him and I was a piece of shit. I just blocked him and refused to see him so he started sending his friends. He is still in complete denial and by now I'm probably another evil toxic ex who broke his heart in his feel-bad stories for his next girl. I had to deal with this gem yesterday when this bimbo comes in without a mask. A few days prior, my boss was furious at her not having a mask and nobody said anything about it. I just got back from delivery at that time. So yesterday she came in again with her boyfriend. The boyfriend was sensible enough to put on a real mask, while bimbo wrapped a flimsy scarf around hers. Immediately upon arrival, I told her to put the HR mask on. She cried and complained how it's not fair and I need to relax. Boyfriend is yelling at her too to cover her face. I told her it's not fair, I have to die because of you. Plus it's the law, fines. Blah blah, made up rules. She keeps uncovering her face, we keep telling her to cover it. Then she whines that we are signaling her out. Her, why is this about me? Me, because it is about you. You're the only one without a mask. Then the boyfriend tells us in frustration that she doesn't want a mask because it messes with her makeup. Sure, because looking good is more important than being dead. Good lord. TLDR, thousands of shop-level employees got laid off based on a computer algorithm the corporate office designed that doesn't factor in seniority and gives preference to certain employees. Store managers and corporate office employees were not affected at all by these layoffs. Please feel free to ask me any questions, I have lots of free time now. And #X200B. I work at it at Take 5 Oil Change, same thing as Jiffy Lube, for 5 years and was terminated yesterday along with 1,000 other lube techs. All the stores only have 1 to 3 people working there now. Nobody at the corporate level got let go, all the store managers are still working, and the rest was left up to a computer algorithm. I took pictures of our company's organizational charts in ADP before they locked me out, showing that corporate employees were not affected at all. The regional manager, who is in charge of over 60 stores, actually said that corporate's computers picked which assistant managers and lube techs would stay and which ones would be terminated with preference given to some assistant managers. I have no say in the matter. Apparently experience wasn't a factor in this algorithm. Lube techs who had worked there for more than 20 years got laid off while some techs who just started last year are still being employed. In the letter they sent out to everyone, They stated that all employees terminated will be considered for rehire subject to work history. They aren't even guaranteeing their jobs back, they're basically telling us we need to fill out an application again and hope for a callback. Does this seem pretty messed up, or is it just me? How can a company lay off people so easily without care? It sounds like they are using the current events as an opportunity to clean house and start fresh with new people once things settle down. I can't imagine a company anywhere that lets a computer tell them who can stay and who can leave during a layoff. I think what bothers me the most is that I know very well the expendable shop-level employees are only getting laid off so the company can afford to pay the management and corporate employees. They still have 10 employees on payroll making $70–80K a year for unit growth and development. This company is not doing any growing or expanding right now, couldn't they let some of those people go? Thank you for taking the time to read. I just really wanted to vent my frustrations. If what they are doing isn't illegal, then it is certainly the shadiest thing I have ever come across.